April 17th in history. In 1492, Spain's royal court buzzed with ambition. Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand held power over a newly unified kingdom, eager to expand their reach across unknown seas. On April 17th, Columbus signed the capitulations of Santa Fe, securing titles of admiral and viceroy over any lands he found, launching history's most consequential voyage. That signature unleashed centuries of European colonization, reshaping continents, cultures, and populations, a moment whose reverberations still define our world today. In 1521, Martin Luther stood before the most powerful court in Christendom. The Holy Roman Emperor Charles V had summoned him to Worms to answer for his writings against the Church. Shown his books, Luther refused to recant. He declared he was bound by scripture and conscience and could not act against them. The empire demanded submission. He would not yield. Luther's refusal permanently split Western Christianity. The Protestant Reformation reshaped Europe's religion, politics, and culture, its echoes still felt in every church that broke from Rome. In 1790, Philadelphia was home to Benjamin Franklin, founding father, inventor, diplomat, and printer, one of the most celebrated minds in the world. On April 17th, Franklin died peacefully at age 84. 20,000 mourners filled Philadelphia's streets for his funeral, one of the largest gatherings in American history. France declared 3 days of national mourning. Franklin's legacy, electricity, diplomacy, democracy, shaped 2 continents and echoes through civilization to this day. In 1861, America teetered on the edge of war. Days after Confederate guns fired on Fort Sumter, Virginia's delegates gathered in Richmond to decide the state's fate. On April 17th, delegates voted 88 to 55 to secede. Virginia left the Union, and with her went Robert E. Lee and a wealth of military leadership that would reshape the entire war. Richmond became the Confederate capital, making Virginia the war's bloodiest battleground. The state's secession prolonged the conflict for 4 devastating years. In 1907, millions of Europeans crossed the Atlantic fleeing poverty and persecution, arriving at Ellis Island, the gateway to a new American life. On April 17, 11,747 immigrants were processed in a single day, a record never broken. Inspectors worked without pause as families clutched their belongings in the Great Hall. That single day symbolized America's transformation. Over 12 million immigrants passed through Ellis Island, their descendants now making up roughly 40% of the U.S. population. In 1917, Russia teetered on collapse. War ravaged the nation, the Tsar had fallen, and Petrograd's streets seethed with hungry, desperate crowds. Lenin stepped onto an armored car at Finland Station and declared the provisional government illegitimate. He demanded immediate peace and all power transferred to the Soviets. The April Theses electrified the Bolsheviks and reordered history. 6 months later, the October Revolution swept the world, reshaping the entire 20th century. In 1947, Texas City Harbor bustled with post-war commerce. Cargo ships loaded with ammonium nitrate sat docked, unaware of the catastrophe about to unfold. The SS High Flyer, struck by debris from the Grand Camp explosion, burned 16 hours. Then it detonated, a second catastrophic blast leveling the harbor and killing hundreds more. Nearly 600 people died. Texas City remains the deadliest industrial accident in U.S. history, reshaping chemical safety regulations and hazardous cargo laws nationwide. In 1961, Cold War tensions gripped the Americas. A secret CIA plan was underway to topple Fidel Castro's communist Cuba using trained exile fighters. On April 17th, roughly 1,400 Cuban exile fighters of Brigade 2506 stormed the Bay of Pigs. Without promised air cover, they faced Castro's forces alone and were quickly overwhelmed. The invasion collapsed in 3 days. Over 1,000 exiles were captured. The humiliation reshaped U.S.-Cuba relations and deepened Cold War distrust for decades. In 1964, America was riding a wave of optimism. At the New York World's Fair, crowds gathered for a landmark moment in automotive history. Ford unveiled the Mustang, priced at just $2,368. Dealerships were instantly overwhelmed, showrooms flooded, orders piled up, and a buying frenzy erupted across the country. The Mustang sold over 1 million units in 2 years, defining the pony car class. It remains an enduring icon of American freedom and open road culture. In 1970, 3 astronauts hurtled through space aboard a crippled spacecraft. An oxygen tank had exploded, leaving Apollo 13 limping toward Earth. Engineers on the ground and crew in space improvised life-saving fixes using tape and plastic bags. Against all odds, they steered safely back toward Earth. On April 17th, the capsule splashed down safely in the Pacific. The mission became a legendary symbol of human ingenuity and the power of teamwork under crisis. In 1975, Cambodia was torn apart by 5 years of brutal civil war. Phnom Penh, a city of over 2 million, braced as Khmer Rouge forces closed in from all sides. On April 17th, Khmer Rouge soldiers marched into the capital. Within hours, they forced the entire population, millions of people, out of the city at gunpoint and into the countryside. Under Pol Pot's regime, nearly 2 million Cambodians perished, a quarter of the population. The killing fields became a symbol of one of history's darkest genocides. In 1982, Canada stood on the edge of history. For over a century, only Britain could amend Canada's own constitution that was about to change. On April 17th, Queen Elizabeth II signed the Constitution Act in Ottawa, patriating Canada's constitution and enshrining the Charter of Rights and Freedoms into law. Canada gained full legislative independence, ending 115 years of constitutional ties to Britain. The Charter still protects fundamental rights for every Canadian today. In 2013, West Texas was a quiet farming town. The West Fertilizer Company sat at its edge, storing tons of ammonium nitrate for the region's agricultural heartland. The fire ignited in the ammonium nitrate storage. At 7:51 p.m., a catastrophic explosion leveled the plant, registering 2.1 on the Richter scale and leaving a crater 93 feet wide. 15 lives were lost, 160 injured, and over 150 buildings destroyed. The disaster prompted sweeping national reforms on chemical facility safety reporting and community hazard disclosure.